I'm Alan Maxson, the writer and director of the movie Alien Planet. I've always been a huge fan of all things with monsters and aliens and creatures. One of my favorite films is Enemy Mine. Along with that is really any other sci-fi that has social commentary, things like Planet of the Apes and Star Trek and really almost any science fiction. Almost all of them have a moral and a social commentary story to it. And I wanted to tell something that was an adventure and out of this world, but at the same time told the audience to think about some things about our humanity that, is not the best part of us. Bigotry and prejudices and any other thing that keeps us hating each other and ourselves. And the best way to do it was with non-human characters. In this way, it could be a blanket story to fit anybody who's been through any personal experience. You can pick and choose in the story who you relate to because you don't look like any of them. So you have to actually think about who you are internally and who you relate to in the film because of that. Alien Planet has been a long time coming for me. I conceptualized the rough idea of the film around 2018-ish. My original script had an additional, I think 20 or 30 pages, but then after I raised all of the money, I could only afford 12 days of shooting, so I had to chop 20 pages. And I also had to alter some things in the story to take less time, to have less items and practical things that need to be purchased. The script changes based on money. That's something that you'll see not only on the independent film level, but even very big budget movies. They'll have to cut $1 million here and there at some point. Alien Planet was a huge undertaking monetarily because there are no humans in it. So every actor has to have prosthetics and makeup. And there's monster suits and puppets. Those things are not cheap. And so I knew I had to raise a fair amount. And I shot a spec trailer. And then I launched the Indiegogo campaign. Luckily, 400 very generous people believed in myself, the project, and the entire team. Over the course of 30 days, we raised about, I think, $65,000 or $70,000, and we were able to make Alien Planet. Designing the characters for this movie was quite the lengthy process because I had to design what they looked like initially. I first drew every character. The alien characters, Gairi, the plants, I did the Dweller. I drew each character to the best I could, and I found multiple reference photos from other films for things like texture, color, lips, eyes, and I kind of montaged it all together with my drawings. After I gathered that, and I first took it to an artist who drew a better version of what I drew for the spec trailer poster. After that step, then I added those drawings to my character design pages. Then I took those to the sculptors, Todd Tucker at Illusion Industries for the aliens, and Tom Devlin for the Dweller and Gairi. And I showed them the artwork, and we discussed what we wanted. And even Todd at Illusion Industries, we had a couple rounds. He gave me many photos during the sculpting process and asked for suggestions or what I liked or didn't like. And eventually we just honed it all in. And then even after that, the prosthetics needed to be painted. So Alexis, our lead painter, I think she was pre-painting these prosthetics for at least 3 or 4 months before we filmed, maybe longer. I don't even remember at this point, but we went through a huge round of, she would send me photos and we'd talk about colors and patterns and different accents and stuff like that. And many people were involved to get the final look. Prosthetics were built into 2 pieces. It was a cowl, which go over your neck and head and shoulders, and then the face, which glues on here. And then you seam it together and paint it. The cowls we had to reuse. We had to reuse the cowls every other day. The faces, we had 1 extra just in case. Luckily, we never had to use the extra. Then you have other things too where, Gairi and the Dweller, we only had the budget for 1. So whatever happened to him, that was it. And on set, there's a few times where things broke and started to fall apart because the Dweller was doing a lot of physical work. Eric, who played the Dweller, he was treating it the way he should. He was a beast. It took its wear and tear, and when things broke off, we glued it back on. Gairi, luckily, she didn't break at all. Nahia, who was our puppeteer for Gairi, she treated it like her baby, and it was very precious. That was great, because Gairi is one of the main characters, and if she broke, we would be up Schitt's Creek. The VFX process has been far more than I expected for this, because my goal going in was, this is a fully practical movie, but there's gunshots of blasters, there's spaceships. I'm stupid. There's a lot of VFX in this. But we did it all in a practical way. So for the spaceship, we actually built a 4-foot spaceship, and we really landed it. We put real LED lights in it so it works. We hooked up air compressors so that when it landed, the sand would blow. Like, we did it all practically, but you have to composite it into the scene with the actors in our actual location. And then there's things like the puppeteers. Every plant you see on screen, the little thudding plants that are in the dirt, they're not on a robot or a machine. Like, there's a puppeteer pulling strings. This is old school string puppeteering. And same with Gairi. Every shot with Gairi had Naia in it, and we had to remove her out of it. Being a creature performer was extremely helpful to directing on this film, because there's a handful of aspects. One, performing through prosthetics and suits and puppets, it's not like acting with your actual face, because you have, an inch thick of prosthetics to show emotion through, and sometimes you have to emote bigger or over-exaggerate, but you also don't want to over-exaggerate in an over-the-top corny way. My experience as a creature performer really helped talking to the actors, and sometimes if you're not used to being in prosthetics, they don't realize if they need to go bigger or not. And so all I have to do is watch on camera and encourage them to go bigger, show me the emotion through that thick prosthetic. And then there's the other aspect of it too, of the prosthetics can get very claustrophobic or hot or uncomfortable. It was interesting because we shot in November, and we shot from 4 a.m. till 10 or 11 hours after that, because we needed as much daylight as we could get. 4 a.m., it was freezing, but then around noon, it was super, super hot. And so these actors and the prosthetics were going through those changes as well. When you are restricted, your comfortability is enhanced, and you have to be mindful. And I think that's something that comes in handy being a creature performer, because I know exactly how they feel, and I know exactly when they're feeling it, and I can see them starting to feel certain uncomfortableness. And that's when I have to step in and say, let's take a break, let's give them some water. You have to hydrate too, because you're sweating in those prosthetics like crazy. The music for Alien Planet has actually been in the works since before the script was even finished. I was sharing the script with the composer from the first draft, Tim Parker. He's a wonderful musician, and he started writing to the script. He wrote a sonata, which is it was like 15 or more minutes long, this beautiful orchestrated piece that symbolizes the whole movie, and each scene is based off of the sonata. We went back and forth a whole bunch of times talking about inspiration and style. One of our biggest inspirations is Jerry Goldsmith. He's a beautiful composer, and particularly for Planet of the Apes. We also had inspiration from The Walking Dead was in there, and a huge inspiration of the 2013 version of Evil Dead. That music was a huge inspiration for this movie. I think this was before we even shot the movie, was Tim. He made a grid sheet, and he just played sounds. And on the grid sheet, I would write whether I liked it or not on a scale of 1 to 10, and why or why not. And we broke it down, basically the tones and the styles and what we wanted. This was all Tim's idea. It was the most genius idea for prep, because since then, we've just been flying. I'll send him a scene and he knocks it out, because we know what we want. It's great. There's no back and forth on it, because once we got to the actual scene, we already knew. I would love to keep doing Alien Planet films, but it would just depend on, you know, the audience reaction and budget and money, and if, you know, if people like it enough for me to get funding to do another one. I currently actually have 4 other Alien Planet ideas already plotted out, but the way that it's built and I have the back history of their species, there can be way more than 4 for sure, but it's just a matter of if the audience wants it. But it's so niche that I think if you are into alien movies or sci-fi or bloody movies, because this movie, we used about 11 gallons of blood. So like if you're into these type of films, it's for you. Like I made this movie specifically for me. Like this is a movie that I've wanted to watch, and so I know if you like similar movies that I do, you're also gonna love it.